Good afternoon. I need to be transparent and give a disclosure similar to the NIOSH director, is that I have no musical talents. I'm not gifted in any way when it comes to music. I teach and direct a policy program and a population health program for medical students. But I'm also and probably one of the main reasons why I'm here is that I am board president of the New Orleans Musicians Clinic and Assistance Foundation. So I'm very familiar with the health, mental health, and social ailments of the musician community. And when I think it was Mr. Atwater earlier who mentioned the unsustainable situation with musicians living in a gig economy. I see that every day. I see the consequences of that. I also understand the barriers to them being able to have appropriate access to the determinants of health. So I see it on a daily basis. My primary talk today is about policy, so I will jump right into that. And policy is not a discipline that is widely understood. So I will present two, oh, it won't, let's see, nope. Okay. Yeah, I can't forward it to the next slide.
Okay, so we can just go like this.
Oh,
Okay.
all right.
Is that the one you want?
Yeah. Yeah. So, two definitions of policy that I'm going to provide to you. The first is from the World Health Organization that defines policy as decisions, plans, and actions that are undertaken to achieve specific health goals of a society. And then also one that I use regularly with my students, authoritative decisions regarding health or the pursuit of health by Buford Longest. So the logical question is, how should policy concepts be applied to a systems change process to achieve desired outcomes, such as what Megan laid out for us earlier with the total musician health model. Models do show a relationship between system change and policy. Actually, the diagram that's on your screen right now, I have an arrow drawn specifically to policy to demonstrate that. But the narrative behind that is that systems change in the context of policy involves a lot of what I've heard going on here today, and that is transforming the underlying structures, practices, and power dynamics within a system to achieve lasting positive outcomes. In doing so, I started thinking about this from the perspective of population health, since the underlying goal of what you're trying to do in the model that was presented earlier is to prevent and improve musician health as a subpopulation of the larger population. And that's very consistent with goals of the discipline of population health. So I looked at this from the perspective of elevating and viewing this challenge through a population health lens, which seemed appropriate. Just two quick definitions of population health for those of you who may not be familiar with that, but It involves understanding and addressing the diverse factors that influence health outcomes across different populations. Population health focuses on targeted strategies tailored to specific communities and population subgroups, such as those classified in the occupation of, music. I think it's a really good fit, honestly. I just offered these two diagrams to show you how closely policy does fit within the population health foundations. In both of these models, you can see circled in red, public policy. So once policy recommendations are identified, it is followed by the complication of how to implement the policy. And I've heard several good recommendations here today, but how do you get those implemented so that they are solidified to bring about change? Because if not, the change is not going to happen. And, you know, what I have experienced is that once the policy recommendations are identified, you know, the accreditation process appears to be a very good way to implement a policy lever. Use the accreditation process. So, you know, historical use of accreditation systems actually demonstrates the intersection of accreditation and solidifying policy. In accreditation systems that have been used, policies guide the accreditation process. It outlines the standards, the criteria, the procedures, the requirements for institutions seeking or maintaining accreditation. Accreditation can be at the national, regional, or specialized level. It ensures transparency and accountability, and accreditation really is a pathway to establish and solidify and measure adherence to policy. So in the total musician help model, we asked, what are the policies needed at each level of this wonderful model that Megan presented to us? What is needed to drive this desired systematic change? And I thought about it and I offered up some strategic decisions. What policies will drive long-term goals? What is the future we want to create? And which areas are critical for systems change to be realized? What are the policy areas needing attention in each of the levels of the model that was offered to us? The policymaking process is very much essential to be considered when designing research and analysis regarding policy. Success is really contingent upon the confluence of three things: proper problem identification, and I've heard some problems being identified throughout the day, feasible policy solutions, but also the political will among stakeholders for that to happen. And that can almost be the most difficult step. Just think of it from a congressional or a state legislative process, how difficult that is to get the political will between the stakeholders for it to be accomplished. Just in closing, and this is very important, activism, advocacy, without policies to solidify change is going to lack sustainability. It's going to be good ideas, good identification of the problems, but without the strength for it to promote and solidify change. Great ideas are only rhetoric if not implemented through policy. And again, I offer accreditation is a pathway, a tried and true pathway by many disciplines to establish, solidify, and measure adherence to policy. There can be very exciting policy research and analysis ahead if we move in this direction. And thank you very much.